Good morning, and thank you all for joining today's Innovator Inner Circle LinkedIn Live with David Panino, founder and CEO of Logicsource. Here's your host, Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research.
Great. Thank you so much, Maura, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Here with David Panino, who's an old friend, to discuss how understanding your not for resale spend, or the goods that you're not selling to a consumer, particularly as a department store, is really critical right now in today's environment. Before we kind of jump into the meat of our discussion, David, can you give us a little bit about your background and tell us a little more about Logicsource?
Sure. Great to see you, Deb, and thanks for the time today. By background, I grew up in what I'd lovingly call the advice business. I worked in consulting for firms like Gartner and a short stint at Deloitte, and during the dot-com boom, built websites and things of that nature, and found I wanted to get into the execution business. I wanted to do work for clients and not just give them really expensive PowerPoint, but actually roll my sleeves up and try to add value. And retail was always a key focus for me. So I started Logicsource to help at the beginning of the firm, retailers drive cost reductions, profit improvement, and ultimately free up investment capital in the world of goods not for resale or indirect procurement. And over the last 12 years, we've built a business that has about 50 billion of spend running through it. We buy for firms like Lululemon and Big Lots and Bells and Titleist, Ocean Spray, Rite Aid, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really excited to talk to you today about where the world's going.
Hey, David, it's interesting as we think about kind of department stores, and when I met you, I had been with Saks in their kind of corporate office. I think it was about 11 or 12 years ago. And they talked about this huge opportunity in goods not for resale. And they said it was kind of this like hidden secret, right? That you didn't see people focusing on. I mean, now that we've got, we had a challenging year for department stores last year, I think with revenues, top line down almost a third, and not really expected to reach pre-pandemic levels this year. Why do you think, kind of not for resale spending is such a critical area for the department store sector specifically? Yeah. In terms of, kind of finding value and increasing productivity?
Yeah, look, it's an enormous percentage of their cost base. On average, doing this 12 years, looking at hundreds of companies and pulling their AP data, we just have so much data running through the firm. And almost every time a department store is going to be around 20% of revenue is going to be goods and services not for resale. And being able to attack that and reduce costs, streamline suppliers, attack tail spend, things of that nature mean you don't have to go after your employees, and you don't have to challenge your ultimate, investments in your brand promise, which is your customer experience. So being able to reduce costs in IT, marketing, facilities, fixtures, distribution, logistics, et cetera, help you fuel the investment dollars to keep your employees safely employed, but also to innovate and be able to go online faster, et cetera. I think that's the key.
It is interesting on the fixtures side, we are seeing a significant increase in interest in changing out fixtures because, from a sustainability perspective, this idea that you can kind of easily move them around. And then also as, more and more, retailers are live streaming from their stores, having this idea of flexibility. So there has been this very interesting kind of fixtures discussion. We've even heard people talking about kind of like movable lights and whatnot, and pickup windows and stuff like that. I mean, if we think about, this idea of how kind of the impact on margins from many issues for the department stores, whether it's been kind of changes in terms of, the product that they're selling or kind of how they're selling it, as a kind of a throwback to this kind of fixture challenge. The challenge really for the department stores is reducing expenditures. And then also, as somebody who spent all of my day Saturday in the mall, really creating this better customer experience and almost anticipatory. Would you say that how companies are approaching, kind of not for resale is becoming more strategic? And is this, are you seeing a wholesale change, or is it kind of baby steps at this point?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. We had a CEO say to us once, I remember sitting in his office for what was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting for about an $8 billion retailer. And it turned into a 2-hour meeting. He asked his assistant to extend his calendar twice during the session. And his summation of our conversation was, okay, this is priority 99. You want to attack goods not for resale. I've got 99 other problems that are hitting my dashboard constantly. But it'll fund priority 1 through 5. And it was a mindset I actually witnessed him go through over a 2-hour meeting to say, I haven't been focused on this because all these other things are hitting me. How do I increase, my SKUs online? How do I handle distribution logistics in this crazy environment we're in? What does my customer want in this post-pandemic environment? All these things hitting his dashboard, and trying to figure out how to fund them isn't in his top priority, but a firm like us could go do it for him and free up that capital so that he can direct those dollars at those key strategic initiatives. And I think that's where they become more strategic, realizing that mining for profit in GNFR will fuel the innovation required to go out and attract and create the customer environment for today's customer. And I think that's where I think it's really become more strategic.
And that actually, kind of dovetails with one of our recent advisory clients, where all of their data was very siloed. I mean, it was fascinating, right? So when we kind of, they'd asked us to really help kind of on 1 through 5, and they were kind of going through the funding exercise, and what they started to realize is that they had duplication of a lot of like data products that they were purchasing. It was more on kind of the knowledge side. And they themselves were taken aback at how, I think the size of the pie, if you will, the size of the prize, however you want to look at it. But, if we think about the department stores where you do have a lot of legacy systems, they are kind of challenged by lack of data and also the siloing. I mean, as we've thought about, or we've seen really, right, the pandemic, not only heighten the need for online and offline, which, kind of multi-channel, omni-channel really to merge, and this kind of one view of what they have, and not only from a kind of people, place, processes, and then also integrating supply chain and whatnot. What benefits are your clients realizing through your solutions that are really allowing them to have this kind of actionable insights and like their aha moment? I mean, and
Yeah.
What is that point?
So I think there's, in the world of GNFR, I'm not qualified to speak to those challenges on the front end of the business, but on the back end of the business on GNFR, what we've found is that just shockingly today, companies still don't have their arms around what they buy, who they buy it from, how much they pay for it, why they buy it, where it is, and therefore you just can't manage what you can't see. And the cost reduction here, again, on 20% of revenue, we're talking 7 to 14% cost reduction. And it all starts with knowing where it is. We're working with a client right now that has 14 different ERP systems, 22,000 suppliers. And trying to figure out how you're going to drive cost savings, you first have to figure out where the spend is. And when you rifle through that data, there's duplication all over the place in that organization. So their suppliers, either knowingly or not, can be kind of picking them off because different divisions and different units don't know they're buying from the same supplier at different prices. And that can lead to all kinds of risk as well in your supply chain. There was a well-known CFO within the big box retail environment that took her job as CFO of a Minnesota-based retailer. And in the first couple months on the job, she stopped all procurement for the headquarters office. It had to go through her. And she saved about $150,000 a week for the first couple of months from stopping people from saying, I want a new chair, I want a new phone, I want just controlling that information. So I think there's a huge opportunity through data products, and what we've built is an analytics tool that kind of controls all these ERP systems and puts it into one data visualization and important data cleansing, but most important, data enrichment tool that not just helps our clients organize their data, but then also provides 50+ billion of data from other businesses to understand what things should cost and to help you start to eliminate duplications of suppliers and things of that nature. The second piece of that is there's no program management products on the market today, like Salesforce.com for your Salesforce. There's none for project management on cost savings initiatives. So we built one because our CFOs, we've surveyed 450 retail CFOs, and 67% of them said savings never matriculate to the P&L. because there's no program management like Salesforce.com to show them when are these savings going to hit? What are the interdependencies? Are we waiting for a supplier? Are we waiting for legal? Are we waiting for a business stakeholder to get us what we need? So that's kind of how we've used data and technology to make sure not only do we know what we buy, who we buy it from, and how much we pay for it, but then when we go to save money, let's make sure it actually gets into the P&L and doesn't become a lost opportunity on a spreadsheet somewhere.
I have to say, David, as you're kind of talking through this, I mean, back in my kind of Wall Street analyst days, right? I mean, you'd be looking for 5 basis points or 10 basis points of, kind of SG&A savings. I mean, this is at a whole different, kind of stratosphere from that. And right, we would assign different valuations based on that. I mean, how, if we think about the solution and the impact that can have on an organization, many times I just feel that, some of these ideas are kind of outside of the field of vision of the CFO or the other leaders that are making these decisions. How do you kind of like bring it into their field of vision, or how do you kind of ring fence that so they understand the opportunity? And then also, how do they start to then make decisions?
Yeah, I think, we've had a couple of projects this year start with CFOs and CEOs putting out a challenge to the organization. I'd say for those that are listening, when the CEO or the CFO say, okay, if it's 20% of the business is GNFR and there's 7 to 14% cost reduction opportunity there, I challenge our leadership team to figure out how we're going to take X million out of the business. We started a deal in 2019 that started with, we want to invest in men's fashion. We kind of own female fashion. We want to accelerate our brand into men. What do I need to believe to take $100 million out of the business to fund that? We have another client that wanted to remodel 1,500 big box, locations. What do I need to believe to take $40 million out of the business? And I would challenge our CFOs and CEOs to come at it from that perspective. If you ask, it's kind of like if you say you're going to go for a 5-mile run, you'll probably run 5 miles. If you say you're going to go for a run, you might run a mile, you might run 3. I think that CFOs are coming at this the wrong way. They're challenging procurement for cost savings, but they're not setting the goal. It's 20% of revenue, and you should be able to drive 7 to 14%. Let the data tell the story from there. What do you need to believe to go get that money? And I think that's where it all starts and stops.
Well, it's interesting as we're starting to kind of go into holiday planning for many retailers, or kind of reconsidering the holiday plans that they had in place. And they are trying to look at ways to, I think there is maybe a bit of a change in mindset, which is, okay, we want to spend this, but how are we going to fund it? And once again, I think a lot of this is being driven by Wall Street in terms of, right, it's, we want to kind of protect what we have. So how, since they're, like literally outside the conversation with Saks, having somebody kind of come to me and like, we really are looking at this like kind of goods not for resale. It's not been, I think, an area of expertise for many of these retailers. So how do they, number one, kind of identify it? And then 2, how do they kind of shift their processes and procedures in order to take advantage of it?
I think a big part of it is, they're out of time here to adjust quickly. So in many cases, they may not be able to build this internally as fast as they want. So ask for third-party help. We do a lot of what we call build, operate, transfer deals where folks will call us and say, okay, I'm not good enough at this yet. Get me good at it really quickly and give me the option to transfer it back in if I want to, but go get the help. Internally within the enterprise, sourcing and procurement for goods not for resale has not been a strategic priority of retailers for the most part. There are exceptions for the last 10 years. And the urgency is right now to go get that money to fund these initiatives. So you got to ask for external help. And you don't want to do that in a form of gain shares and things of that nature. It's your money. Go get partners that will help you go get the money. And it's your money. Pay them a reasonable fee to go get it. Help them build up a world-class capability. And if you want to bring it back in-house, transfer it back. If you don't want to be in the indirect procurement business, don't be. Just make sure you have toothy clauses with them so they always pay for themselves. But the time is now to go get it because it's going to fund all the things you need to do.
But it's also, David, I mean, I want to conclude this. I mean, you're starting to kind of rethink the way that these organizations are structured and really opening up the floodgates of information in terms of, how it flows between departments, between divisions. And so I feel like this is almost like, kind of pulling on a string or, just getting started, because what you can figure out internally could really unlock a lot of value and opportunities that you didn't realize. So I want to conclude with that. I mean, I think we've just scratched the surface here. And once again, as we head into holiday and we're seeing a lot of, new initiatives kind of come to play, I think that there are unique ways to think about funding that. And certainly looking at goods not for resale is where we think you should start. David, thank you for joining us. We just got started and looking forward to many more of these conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time today.